Part 1. 3 a.m. The nightmare begins. The first thing Jack Harrow noticed was the sound. Not the dripping faucet, not the restless seagulls crying above the docks, no, it was the pulse. A slow, impossible heartbeat that seemed to come from the floor itself. He sat up on the worn sofa of his one-room apartment, the springs groaning like something dying. The wallpaper had peeled into long yellow tongues. The air smelled of salt, rust, and mold, the trinity of Blackpool's rot. Outside, the fog pressed against the window so thick it might as well have been flesh. Jack rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He hadn't meant to fall asleep again. The night shift was supposed to end at 2, he'd done his rounds, delivered a box to the morgue, another to the fish cannery, and the last one to some anonymous client under the old viaduct. He'd been a courier for years, delivering to monsters, debtors, and the forgotten. His clients didn't always breathe. But they always paid. Mostly. Something flickered in the corner of the room. The relic. It sat in a cracked wooden crate, wrapped in newspaper and oily cloth, glowing faintly like a dying star. A sphere of white light pulsed inside, a heartbeat to match the one beneath the floor. It made the shadows stretch unnaturally long across the walls. He'd gotten it 2 weeks ago. Tip, from Magnus Vane, the eccentric collector who never paid his pizza tab. Vane had vanished the next day. Jack had kept the orb because pawning it made him uneasy. It felt personal. The heartbeat grew louder. He crouched down, touching the floorboards. They were trembling, not from traffic or storm, but from something deep, rhythmic, and alive. Then came the knock. 3 heavy blows on his door. Too loud. Too human. Jack froze. Nobody visited him. Nobody even knew this address. Jack Harrow, a voice rasped. Open the damn door. He recognized it immediately. Ricky, Rust, Mallory, Deputy Sheriff of Blackpool and certified drunk. A man with a conscience too bruised to function. Jack sighed, grabbed his jacket, and unlocked the door. Rust stood there, drenched in rain though the night was dry, his eyes bloodshot and terrified. The revolver at his hip looked freshly used. Jesus, Rust, Jack muttered. You look like you saw a ghost. I wish it was just that. The deputy pushed past him, slamming the door shut. Where's the relic? Jack blinked. What relic? Rust turned to him, eyes wild. Don't play dumb, Harrow. The white sphere Vane left you. The one that hums. Jack hesitated, then nodded toward the crate. That one? Rust stared at it with something between awe and hatred. It's waking up. Jack frowned. It? What do you mean, it? Rust ran a hand through his thinning hair. His fingers were shaking. Elsie sent me. She said you're the last one. The last delivery boy. He laughed bitterly. Guess she didn't tell you the truth. Jack's gut tightened. Elsie? What the hell does my foster mother have to do with this? Rust didn't answer. Instead, he pointed his revolver at the floor. Listen. The heartbeat had grown into a drumbeat now, deep and wet, vibrating through their shoes. Rust whispered, that's not the earth moving. That's a thing, under the mines. The black veins breathing again. Jack frowned. You're drunk? I'm sober enough to be terrified, Rust spat. 30 years ago, the ground opened under Blackpool. People vanished. Miners, cops, even your parents. Elsie said it would happen again. 30 years, like clockwork. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. His parents had died in an accident. That's what Elsie had told him. The details were always blurry. He'd stopped asking at 12. Russ looked at him with desperate eyes. She said you're the one who can stop it. You and the sword. Jack blinked. Sword? I deliver pizzas and coffins. I don't own a sword. Russ took a step closer. You will. If Elsie's right, it'll find you before dawn. The relic suddenly flared, white light spilling across the room, crawling up the walls, turning the air to static. The hum rose to a scream. The floor cracked. A thin fissure tore through the middle of the apartment, splitting the table in two. A rush of hot air burst out, smelling like coal and blood. Rust grabbed Jack's shoulder. "We have to move. Now." Jack snatched his duffel bag, habit, instinct. Money, keys, a small knife, cigarettes. As he turned, he caught his reflection in the window. His pupils were glowing faintly blue. "Christ," he whispered. "What's happening to me?" Rust didn't answer. The door rattled behind them. 3 new knocks, slow. Deliberate. Jack raised his head, dread slithering down his spine. "Who's there?" he called. Silence. Then, a voice, soft as oil, "Jack, you still owe us a delivery." Rust fired at the door. The bullet tore through wood, hitting nothing. When the smoke cleared, the door stood wide open, the hallway beyond completely empty, except for a trail of black water leading down the stairs. Jack stared at it. The smell of the sea hit him like rot. Rust holstered his gun. "That's our cue." They drove through the fog-drowned streets in Rust's rusted police van, the headlights struggling against the mist. Blackpool at 3:45 a.m. was a ghost town of flickering lampposts and boarded-up pubs. The sea beyond the docks pulsed with dull red light, as if bleeding beneath the waves. Rust chain-smoked while driving, eyes locked ahead. "You ever wonder why Elsie kept you here? Why she never let you leave the docks?" Jack shrugged. "Didn't care. World outside's just as rotten." "She was hiding you," Rust said. "From them." "Them?" "The veiled cult. The ones who worship the drowned one." Jack laughed bitterly. "Sounds like a bad band name." "Not funny," Rust muttered. "They built this town. Every tunnel, every shaft beneath it. They fed the mines with blood sacrifices back in the Victorian days. When the last vein collapsed, they sealed something alive under there." Jack looked out the window. The fog seemed to thicken when Rust said alive. Rust continued, voice hoarse. "It sleeps 30 years at a time. Then it's reborn, hungrier. Stronger. The ground starts to beat like a heart. Just like tonight." Jack's hand drifted to the relic in his jacket pocket. It was warm. Almost breathing. "So what, I'm supposed to kill a god?" Rust gave a dark grin. "Something like that. Elsie says you're the chosen. Whatever that means." Jack groaned. "Great. I'm a chosen delivery boy." They stopped outside a crumbling stone church, the Archangel's Rest. Its steeple had fallen decades ago, leaving only jagged bones of masonry against the fog. The stained glass windows were shattered, but faint light flickered from below. Rust stepped out. "This is where it starts. The archive vault." Jack followed, his boots crunching glass. "You sure this isn't a setup?" Rust looked at him, eyes full of something like pity. "Jack, if it's a setup, we're already dead." The church doors creaked open on their own. Inside, candles burned in hundreds of empty liquor bottles. The pews had been torn apart, arranged in a spiral leading to a trapdoor at the altar. Books and bones lined the walls. The smell of wax and mildew was suffocating. From the shadows, a voice spoke, smooth, ancient, calm. "You're late, Mr. Harrow." A figure stepped forward, a man dressed in a threadbare cassock, skin pale as marble, eyes entirely black. His hair was white but ageless, and he carried a lantern whose flame burned upward, defying gravity. Rust whispered, "The archivist." The figure smiled faintly. "Deputy Mallory. You've brought him, as promised." Jack tensed. "Who the hell are you?" "The keeper of forgotten things," the archivist said. "And tonight, you are the last delivery I've been waiting for." He gestured toward the trapdoor. "The others await below. The drowning crew." Jack looked from the flickering candles to Rust, then to the trembling relic in his pocket. Somewhere beneath them, the heartbeat thudded again, slow, immense, eternal. Russ murmured, "That's it, Jack. That's where it begins." Jack exhaled. "And where it ends." The archivist opened the trapdoor, revealing stairs descending into blackness. Cold, wet air rose from below, carrying the smell of the sea and something far older. As Jack stepped toward the darkness, the orb in his pocket pulsed one last time, bright as lightning, before dimming to a faint, dying glow. He looked at Rust. "If I don't come back?" Rust smirked tiredly. "You're not planning to. None of us are." The heartbeat below grew louder, closer. Jack tightened his grip on the relic and descended into the dark. Part 2: The Drowning Crew. The stairs spiraled down for what felt like miles. Each step was slick with moisture, each breath colder than the last. Jack Harrow's flashlight died halfway through, but the archivist's lantern burned on, its flame steady, unnatural, glowing blue in the dark. At the bottom, the tunnel widened into a vault. An underground cathedral carved from stone and coal. Rusted bookcases formed walls. Candles floated in the air as if suspended by invisible strings. And waiting inside, 11 figures, silent, watching. "The drowning crew," the archivist murmured. "The last defense against the tide." Jack's boots echoed as he stepped forward. Their eyes followed him. Some curious. Some cautious. Some already mourning him. A woman with copper hair and chemical burns on her wrists grinned first. "Jack Harrow, huh? The pizza boy who pissed off a god." She extended a gloved hand. "Brianna Voss. Alchemist. Call me Bricks." Jack shook it hesitantly. "You blow things up or fix them?" "Depends on the dosage." Next came a man built like a freight train, tattoos crawling up his arms like vines. His eyes glowed faintly with veins of light. "Owen Kane," he said, voice low and cracking. "People call me Ox." "Because you're strong?" "Because I've got horns," he muttered. And for a heartbeat, Jack thought he wasn't joking. The shadows behind his head bent wrong, like they wanted to shape into antlers. Before Jack could reply, another voice cut in, smooth, distant. "Blood doesn't lie." A woman in a crimson coat stepped from the circle, her skin pale as chalk. Her veins shimmered faintly under the skin like red lightning. "Lydia Shaw. Blood Mage. Don't shake my hand unless you want me to know your sins." Jack smirked. "I don't have any." She looked at him for one long, haunting second. "Everyone says that before they start bleeding." Behind her, a figure in a fox mask leaned lazily against a pillar. "He'll do fine." He looked stupid enough to be brave. Jack squinted. "And you are?" "Taylor Finch. Family calls me Shadow." "You shouldn't." Next to Taylor, a man crouched low, his fingers twitching in restless rhythm. His eyes darted to the ceiling, then to the walls, as if listening to something Jack couldn't hear. "Thomas Fell," the archivist introduced. "Acolyte. Our navigator." Thomas lifted his head, revealing a blindfold stained with soot. "I can hear the tunnels breathe," he said softly. "They are already shifting." A growl echoed from the corner. Jack turned, hand on his knife, but it wasn't an animal, it was Wolfgang Crow. His skin rippled under the light, features flickering between man and beast. When he smiled, too many teeth showed. "I change shape," Wolf said. "Sometimes it's not mine." "Good to meet you," Jack said carefully. "Don't get attached," Wolf replied. "People who do tend to die." A sudden metallic clatter made everyone look. Two identical women stood by a table, one holding a flask, the other a revolver. They moved in eerie synchrony. "Serena and Jessie Grave," Rust muttered. "Twins." "Mind linkers." "Mind controllers," Serena corrected. "Control's too strong a word," Jessie added. "We share." Jack looked between them. "Share what?" They smiled. "Together. Everything." A faint chirping filled the air, a crow perched on someone's shoulder. A man with dark eyes and cracked knuckles stroked it gently. "Diego Ruiz," he said. I talk to animals. They talk back. Jack eyed the bird. And they like you? Diego didn't answer. The crow cawed sharply, flapping away. Not always. Finally, a woman in a patched cloak entered from the side tunnel, limping slightly. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the lantern light. Jack froze. "Elsie," he whispered. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that belonged to a confession. "Hello, my boy." The room fell silent. Even the heartbeat in the wall seemed to hold its breath. Jack took a step forward. "You sent Rust? You knew about this, about me?" Elsie's eyes were wet, but steady. "I knew this day would come. 30 years ago, your parents went down into the black vein to seal the drowned one. They didn't return. I was the one who pulled you from the collapse." "You lied," Jack said flatly. "I protected you," she corrected. "You were marked that night. Chosen by the light. That relic in your pocket isn't a keepsake, it's a key. And it's calling the others." Jack's hand brushed the relic through his coat. It was hot now, almost burning. "Others?" he asked. The archivist lifted his lantern. Its blue flame flared, casting strange shapes across the ceiling, shapes like tentacles, or veins. "The veiled cult," he said. "They've begun the birthing ritual beneath the mines. The drowned one is stirring. We have hours, at best." Rust stepped forward. "Then we move." The archivist nodded. "You will. But understand, this is not a rescue. It is an ending. For one of you, for all of you, that remains to be seen." They gathered around a map carved directly into the stone floor, tunnels twisting like arteries, converging on a central chamber marked the heart. Lines pulsed faintly with red light, almost alive. Thomas traced one finger over it. "The mines shift every time the vein wakes. We'll need to move fast, or we'll drown before we see daylight again." Owen cracked his neck. "How deep?" "Farther than God remembers," Thomas said. "And God doesn't listen down there." Taylor leaned over the map. "So what's the plan?" Rust pointed. "We split in 3. One group clears the east shaft, another holds the barricade. Jack, Elsie, and I head for the core. The heart chamber." Lydia frowned. "That's suicide." "Everything else is worse," Rust said. "If that thing wakes, it won't stop with Blackpool." Jack felt all their eyes on him, the supposed chosen. He didn't feel chosen. He felt like a man shoved into a story already written. Elsie stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on his shoulder. "You have your father's eyes," she whispered. "And his curse." He met her gaze. "Then I'll end it the way he couldn't." The ground shook. Candles flickered. The heartbeat below roared like thunder. The archivist raised his lantern, the flame turned black. "It begins," he said. "The tunnels are opening." Wolf growled. "About time." Serena and Jesse clasped hands, their voices merged into one whisper. "We see them. Masks of bone. Coming." Rust cocked his revolver. Cults on the move. Bricks uncorked a vial that hissed neon green. "Let's give them something to remember." Thomas tilted his head, listening to the stone. "The mine is breathing faster." Owen tightened his gloves. "Then let's cut its throat." They descended again, through the lower vaults, past shelves of drowned scriptures, rusted helmets, and jars of preserved eyes. The tunnels narrowed until they had to crawl. Water dripped from above, black and oily. The heartbeat was everywhere now, like a drum inside their bones. Jack whispered, "What happens if we fail?" Rust's answer was short. "We won't be around to know." By the time they reached the first shaft, the air was electric with decay. Torches sputtered. The walls gleamed with veins of black crystal, pulsing faintly. Shapes moved in the fog ahead, human, but wrong. The veiled cult. Dozens of figures wrapped in wet cloth and bone masks, chanting in a language that felt like drowning. Briggs whispered, "On your mark, Sheriff." Rust drew his gun. Mark. The tunnels erupted. Fire flared from Briggs's vials. Wolf charged, half-beast, tearing through the cultists. Taylor vanished into the shadows, striking from behind. The twins screamed in unison, their eyes glowing white. Cultists froze mid-step, their own minds turning against them. Lydia slashed her palm, blood burning in the air. Sigils ignited along the walls, sealing passages shut. Jack could barely keep up. Every flash of light revealed faces twisted, limbs breaking, screams swallowed by the echoing heartbeat. He caught sight of Elsie across the chaos, calm, ancient, murmuring prayers older than English. The air bent around her. The archivist's voice cut through the din, to the black vein. "Go." Jack nodded, clutching the relic, and followed Rust into the darkness below, leaving behind the screaming tunnels and the first taste of the war to come. Part 3, The Black Vein. The air changed first. One breath down the tunnel and Jack could taste iron. Two more and it tasted like blood that wasn't his. The stone stairway vomited them into a corridor carved by claws, not tools. The walls were slick and black, breathing slow as lungs. Every few seconds a ripple moved through the rock, pushing damp air across their faces. The sound was no longer a heartbeat, it was a pulse through the world itself. Rust clicked on his headlamp. "Welcome to the vein." Owen muttered, "Looks alive." Thomas, blindfold taut, tilted his head. "Because it is." Behind them, Briggs sealed the entrance with a vial of green flame. No turning back now. The tunnel branched into 3 arteries. The map Thomas carried had already shifted, lines moving like worms across the paper. He hissed and crumpled it. "It's rewriting itself." Jack wiped sweat from his neck. The relic in his jacket throbbed in sync with the walls. "It wants us deeper." Rust glanced at him. "Then we go deeper." They moved in silence, boots squelching through puddles of black water. Every few steps, something twitched under the surface, too slow for fish, too deliberate for wind. Lydia pressed a bloody hand to the wall, murmuring. The stone shuddered like a creature in pain. "It remembers us," she whispered. "It knows." Jack didn't ask what that meant. After an hour, the tunnel opened into a cavern so vast the light from their torches vanished before reaching the ceiling. Dripping stalactites hung like fangs. The ground was covered in skeletal mining carts, rusted tools, and the bones of men turned black by time. Wolf sniffed the air. Not alone. From the far side of the cavern came a dragging sound, metal on stone, slow and deliberate. Then another. Then hundreds. Something emerged from the fog. A segmented body, each plate the size of a door. Legs like blades clattered along the walls. The Titan millipede's head rose from the darkness, eyes glowing like furnaces. Briggs whispered, "Holy hell." Thomas said quietly, "Run." The creature screamed, a shriek that shattered lights and made Jack's nose bleed. The cavern collapsed into chaos. Wolf shifted mid-stride, half man, half lion, hurling himself at the monster's side. Claws tore into chitin. The beast convulsed, smashing him against the wall with a sound like wet wood breaking. "Wolf!" Lydia shouted, carving a sigil into her forearm. Her blood ignited, forming a crimson barrier around Jack and Rust as debris rained down. Owen roared, lifting a fallen beam with inhuman strength. His eyes burned white. "Move!" They sprinted across the wreckage as the millipede lunged again, its mandibles snapping where Jack had been seconds ago. He drew his knife, absurdly small against the thing, but instinct forced it into his hand anyway. Rust fired round after round into the creature's eyes. Black ichor sprayed like tar, sizzling where it touched skin. Briggs hurled a vial, blue light exploded, eating through armor with a hiss. The millipede reared, screaming, and smashed into the ceiling. Rocks rained down. Lydia stumbled, the barrier flickered. Blood poured from her nose and mouth. "I can hold it." "You can't," Jack said, pulling her up. "Move." She pushed him away, eyes fierce. "Get to the next tunnel." I'll buy you time." Before he could argue, she slashed both wrists wide, hands raised. Her blood spiraled into runes mid-air, dozens of glowing red sigils that burst outward, embedding themselves into the millipede's flesh. The creature convulsed. For a heartbeat, Jack saw it through her eyes, an ocean of black veins, a heart the size of a cathedral, beating somewhere beneath all this stone. Then everything turned white. The explosion threw him backward into darkness. When he woke, silence. His ears rang. Dust drifted like snow. Half the cavern had collapsed, the others were gone. Lydia's sigil still burned faintly on the rubble. Jack crawled free, coughing blood. The relic's glow had changed, paler now, flickering. "Rust," he shouted. No answer. He staggered forward through a slit in the wall that hadn't been there before, following the heartbeat. The corridor beyond pulsed with faint purple light, veins glistening like wet roots. At first he thought the whispers were wind. Then they formed words. "Jack, remember the tunnel, remember the water." He froze. The voice was his mother's. He pressed a hand to the wall. Images bled into his mind, his mother screaming, a flashlight dropping into dark water, a man in a miner's helmet pulling a child away. His father's voice shouting his name, "James Harrow, hold him." Then a flash of teeth, roar, and the sound of something enormous breaking through rock. Jack stumbled backward, gasping. The whisper changed pitch, now male, older, rough. "You were never lost. You were offered." The tunnel shook. A crack opened in the floor, oozing black liquid. Shapes crawled within it, hands, faces, fragments of bone. He drew his knife again. Not today. The shadows laughed. Rust found him minutes later, blood down one arm, flashlight flickering. "Christ, kid, you're still breathing." "Lydia. She's gone." Rust's voice was raw. "Bought us the only path left." Jack nodded, jaw tight. "Then we finish it." They pressed on, the air growing heavier. The heartbeat was so loud now it drowned their thoughts. The tunnel widened again into a chasm crossed by narrow bridges of bone. Below, black liquid boiled, filled with faces mouthing silent screams. Bricks and Owen waited at the far end, battered but alive. Thomas knelt beside them, one ear to the ground. "It's close. The heart chamber's below us." Owen coughed blood. His skin looked older, hair graying at the edges. "Used too much strength," he muttered. "How much time you got?" Rust asked. Owen smiled faintly. "Half a year. Maybe less." Jack looked at the abyss beneath them. "Let's make it count." They crossed the bridge single file. Halfway across, the heartbeat stopped. Silence. Total. Oppressive. Then the world exhaled. From below, the black liquid erupted, tendrils whipping up, grabbing Owen's leg. He roared, ripping one free, but another caught his chest. Rust fired into the pit, uselessly. Owen looked back at Jack. "Tell them I died strong." "Don't you?" Jack reached for him. Too late. The tendrils yanked him down into the dark. His scream was swallowed whole. The bridge collapsed behind him. Jack hit the ground hard on the other side. Rust and Bricks landed beside him, coughing. Thomas wasn't so lucky, a splintered beam pinned his leg. Jack pulled him free as the last pieces of the bridge sank into the liquid below. "Keep moving," Thomas gasped. "It's coming." The final tunnel was a throat, curved, wet, breathing. The relic in Jack's pocket pulsed wildly, dragging him forward. Rust limped beside him, revolver empty but still raised. At the end stood a door of bone taller than a house, covered in symbols carved from blood. Each rune glowed when Jack approached. The relic tore from his pocket, hovering in the air. Light burst from it, carving a line down the center of the door. "Jack," Rust said quietly. "Before we open this, there's something you should know." Jack looked at him. Rust's face was pale, almost trembling. "I wasn't just working for Elsie. She wanted me to watch you. Because," he hesitated, voice breaking. "Because your real name isn't Harrow. It's Black." The world tilted. "What?" Rust nodded. "Daniel Black. Sheriff Black. I'm your brother." Jack's breath caught. The floor seemed to melt beneath him. "No, that's not possible." "It is," Rust said. "You were taken the night our parents died down here. I thought you were buried with them." The relic's light intensified, forcing them both to squint. The bone door groaned open, revealing a chamber pulsing with violet light. Jack's voice was a whisper. "Then why didn't she tell me?" "Because," Rust said, loading one last bullet, "you were never supposed to come back." Inside the heart chamber, the walls were flesh. A single black cocoon hung from the ceiling, veins leading into it from every direction. It pulsed once, slow and heavy, like the beat of the world restarting. Bricks crossed herself. "That's it. The birthing pod." The cocoon split open, spilling purple fluid. A hand emerged, pale, human, wrong. And a voice, identical to Jack's, whispered from within. "You're late for your delivery." Part 4, the heartbeat. The cocoon split open with a sound like wet silk tearing. Purple fluid spilled across the floor, steaming as it touched the stone. From inside, a figure crawled forward, human at first glance, but wrong in every way that mattered. It wore Jack's face. Not a copy, not an illusion. His face. Same scars, same eyes, except where his glowed faint blue, has burned with black fire. Rust froze. "What the hell?" Bricks whispered, "Mother Mara." The thing smiled. "So kind of you to deliver yourself, Jack." The birthing chamber shuddered as her voice filled it. The walls pulsed faster, veins throbbing, the great heart above them beating like thunder. Fluid rained down in crimson drops. Jack took a step forward, swordless but unshaken. "You me?" Mara tilted her head. "I am what was left behind. The half that stayed when you were taken. Your fear, your hunger, your shadow. While you walked above, I waited." Rust aimed his gun. "You waited to die." She laughed, a sound that made the stone bleed. "Oh, little sheriff. You'll die first." The veins along the floor ripped open, black tendrils erupted, lashing toward them. Jack shoved Rust aside and dove, rolling behind a fallen column. Bricks hurled a vial, blue fire burst across the floor, incinerating the first wave of tendrils, but more rose, dozens, hundreds. Thomas screamed from the tunnel entrance. "It's the drowned one. The heart's waking." The ceiling cracked. Black liquid poured down, forming a massive shape, something titanic and barely defined, all eyes and mouths and dripping hunger. The drowned one was no longer a myth. It was a living sea. "Fall back!" Rust shouted. "No," Jack said, eyes on Mara. "We finish it." Mara lifted a hand. The ground split. A blade of bone grew upward, coiling into her grasp, a perfect mirror of the sword in Jack's dreams. "Light and shadow, brother. Let's see which one the world remembers." Jack felt heat sear his palm. The relic burst from his pocket, shattering midair. Its fragments spun, merging, forging themselves into a blade of pure light that settled into his grip. The sound it made was a heartbeat. The sword of the vein. He raised it. The two mirrors faced each other, light and dark. Then they moved. They collided in the center of the chamber. Sparks of white and black fire exploded, shaking the walls. Mara's laughter echoed through the storm as their blades met again and again, every strike shaking the chamber's heart. Rust fired into her shadow, bullets vanishing midair. Brick screamed, mixing vials in her hands. "Jack, duck!" He dropped. Her vial burst against Mara's chest, flooding her in fire. For one brilliant moment she burned, then the flames went out, sucked into her skin. Mara turned, smiling through smoke. "Alchemy. How quaint." She snapped her fingers. A tendril of darkness speared Briggs through the stomach. She gasped, dropping her flasks. Jack screamed. No? Briggs smiled weakly, blood on her lips. Don't waste it. She hurled her last vial upward. The explosion tore open the ceiling. Light from above cut through the dark like a wound. The drowned one roared, an ocean's worth of fury in a single sound. Jack lunged, driving his blade through Mara's arm. She shrieked, shadows bursting outward. The chamber shook, tendrils flailed blindly. Rust was caught, hurled across the floor, his gun clattering away. He hit the wall hard and didn't move. Jack turned back to Mara, too late. Her bone sword pierced his shoulder, throwing him to his knees. She leaned close, breath cold as the grave. You think you're the hero, she whispered. But you just the next meal. Then a new voice joined them, a voice trembling, human, raw. Get the hell away from my brother. Rust, bleeding, raised his revolver. One last bullet. He fired. The round hit Mara square between the eyes. For a second, nothing. Then black light exploded outward. Mara staggered back, shrieking. Her sword disintegrated. The great heart above them began to scream, its pulse turning erratic. Jack stood, sword of light blazing. We end this together. Rust nodded. Let's deliver this bastard. The ground split as the drowned one rose, a mountain of flesh, a god wearing a body it had outgrown. Dozens of human faces pushed against its surface, screaming silently. Its core, a massive purple heart, beat in rhythm with the chamber. The twins appeared in the tunnel entrance, faces pale, eyes glowing white. We can hold it, they said together. For a moment, Jack shouted, don't. Serena smiled sadly. Too late. Their hands clasped. Their voices became one. The drowned one convulsed, dozens of its eyes turning inward, bleeding black. The twins screamed, light pouring from their mouths. Their bodies fell together, lifeless, still holding hands. Rust's jaw clenched. Goddamn. Jack raised the sword, its glow pulsing brighter. Keep the heart exposed. Briggs's corpse lay near the edge, glass shards still fizzing. Jack kicked one into the pit, it burst, igniting the black fluid. Fire raced up the veins, lighting the chamber like dawn. Mara staggered back, half her body burning. You can't kill it. It's in you. Jack's vision blurred. Images flooded his mind, his father, his mother, the collapse 30 years ago, Elsie pulling him from the rubble. The relic pressed into his chest, sealing something inside him. Not protecting him. Containing him. He looked at Mara. Then I'll take it with me. She lunged. He met her blade with his own, twisting, stepping inside her guard. For a heartbeat they were face to face, twin reflections burning with opposite light. Then he drove the sword through her chest, straight into the heart of the drowned one. The explosion was silent at first. Then the world screamed. White fire consumed the chamber, washing over stone, flesh, and bone alike. The drowned one howled, collapsing into itself. Tendrils burned, walls caved, and the ocean's roar faded into wind. Jack fell to his knees, the sword melting in his hands. His memories burned with it, faces, names, his childhood. All gone, replaced by light. Rust crawled toward him through the ash. Jack! Jack looked up, eyes hollow, voice distant. I can't remember. Rust grabbed his shoulders. You don't have to. You're my brother. That's enough. The ceiling began to crumble. Water poured through cracks above, flooding the chamber. Thomas limped toward them, dragging Diego by the arm. We have to move. Rust pulled Jack up. Together, they stumbled through the collapsing tunnel. The ground shook with the dying pulse of the heart. Behind them, the chamber imploded, the light swallowing everything. They reached the surface just as the first rays of dawn broke through the fog. The church was gone. The town above still standing, though every window rattled with the final echo of the blast. Owen's gloves lay on the ground near the crater. Bricks's vials smoked beside them. The twins' rings melted into one. Rust helped Jack sit against a fallen wall. His brother's eyes were empty, lost. "You did it," Rust said softly. Jack stared at the horizon. "Did what?" "Saved them." Jack looked at his hands, burned, shaking. "Then why does it feel like it's still beating?" From the sea came a distant, slow thud, like a heart buried under miles of water. Hours later, the fog rolled in again. Blackpool looked the same as it always had, broken, tired, pretending not to remember. The survivors stood by the shoreline: Rust, Diego, Serena, her eyes vacant, Thomas, and Elsie. Jack walked to the edge of the pier, the relic, now dim and cracked, resting in his palm. Rust joined him, coat flapping in the wind. 30 years, Rust said quietly. "You think it's over?" Jack stared at the waves. "I don't remember enough to be sure." Rust smiled faintly. "You sound like me." Jack glanced at him, a ghost of a smile in return. "You're the sheriff now. Guess that makes you what? The delivery boy of God?" Jack looked back at the sea. Just a man waiting for the next order. The wind shifted. The fog thickened. Somewhere beneath the waves, something answered with a single, soft heartbeat. Jack closed his eyes. 30 years, he whispered. The relic's light went out. Part 5, The Last Delivery. The sea had never been still in Blackpool. Even after the blast, even after the tunnels collapsed and the sky burned white, the water kept moving, slow, restless, murmuring against the ruins like a thing trying to remember its own name. 3 days had passed. The mist hadn't lifted once. The Grimshaw docks were cordoned off with police tape that fluttered uselessly in the salt wind. Russ Mallory stood there at dawn, cigarette trembling between his fingers, watching the tide drag bits of charred wood into the surf. His reflection stared back at him, older than it should have been. Behind him, a radio hissed on the hood of his patrol car. Structural collapse ruled accidental, mining gases, no survivors officially identified. He turned the dial off. No survivors officially identified. Good. Let the world forget. It was safer that way. He took another drag, exhaled, and listened to the faint pulse of the tide. A heartbeat. Always one more. Footsteps crunched through the fog. Elsie Harrow appeared, coat buttoned to her throat, hands shaking as she clutched a thermos. Her eyes were red, not from tears, there were none left, but from sleeplessness. Still here, she said softly. Can't sleep, Russ murmured. She poured 2 cups of tea, handed him one. He's not sleeping either. Russ didn't have to ask who he was. Down the dock, sitting at the edge of the pier with his legs dangling over the black water, was Jack Harrow. He hadn't said a full sentence since the cave. Still doesn't remember? Rust asked. Elsie shook her head. He remembers how to drive, how to talk, how to fight. But not who he is. The memories are gone. It's like the sea took them back. Rust sipped his tea, grimaced. Could have taken the nightmares too. Elsie managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It never does. Jack turned slightly, as if he'd heard them. The morning fog haloed his silhouette, the cracked relic faintly glowing in his hand. The light pulsed once every few seconds, dim, irregular, like a wounded heart refusing to die. Rust walked over, boots echoing on the damp boards. You gonna keep staring at it till it tells you a story? Jack didn't look up. It's quieter today. Good. Means it's dead. Jack's head tilted. Does it? Rust bit down the answer. The silence between them was thick as tar. I brought you breakfast, Rust said finally. If you still eat that kind of thing. Sausage roll, bit burnt. Jack took it absently, eyes still on the horizon. Thanks. Sure. The sea murmured, long and low, like a whisper beneath language. Rust rubbed his temple. You hear that? Hear what? Never mind. He looked at his brother, this man who had saved the town and lost himself doing it, and felt something inside him twist. He'd seen soldiers like that before. Empty but alive, ghosts that hadn't realized they were still breathing. You could leave, Rust said. Start over. Manchester, maybe. No one know you. Jack finally turned to look at him. His eyes were pale, almost translucent. Wouldn't matter. It'd follow. Rust frowned. What would? Jack hesitated. The delivery. By evening, the others had gathered, or what was left of them. Diego Ruiz sat cross-legged on a crate, feeding scraps of fish to a stray dog that refused to come closer than 5 feet. Serena Graves stood a little apart, face calm but eyes unfocused, as if listening to voices only she could hear. Thomas Fell leaned against the lamppost, bandaged and blindfolded, muttering prayers in a language that didn't belong to any church Rust knew. Smells like rain, Diego said. Everything smells like rain here, Rust replied. Thomas's head lifted. It's not rain. It's the tide. Rust frowned. What's that supposed to mean? The tide doesn't wait for God, Thomas murmured. It remembers. No one spoke after that. That night, the fog rolled thicker than ever. The whole town drowned in it. Streetlights were no more than golden bruises in the dark. Jack walked the empty streets, relic in his pocket, feeling the rhythm in the cobblestones under his boots, thud, 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 like something sleeping just beneath the surface. He passed boarded windows, dead neon signs, the ghost of his old delivery van half buried in rubble. He paused at Elsie's door. Through the glass, she slept in her armchair, rosary tangled in her hands. The photo on the table beside her showed him as a boy, grinning, pizza box raised like a trophy, Danny's shadow in the corner of the frame. He touched the glass. It was cold as bone. The relic pulsed once in his pocket. Thud. He turned and kept walking. By the time he reached the pier, the tide was high. Mist moved across the water like breath. In the distance, something glowed beneath the surface, a faint, steady light, the color of bruised flesh. Jack knelt. The relic's glow matched it, pulsing faster. He whispered, "You're still down there, aren't you?" The water shivered. Behind him, Rust's voice, "Jack." He didn't turn. "It's not over." Rust stepped closer, hand on his gun though he didn't know why. "It never is. But we're above ground now. That's gotta count." Jack stood slowly, eyes still on the sea. "Do you hear it?" "Hear what?" "The heartbeat." Rust opened his mouth to answer, then froze. He did hear it. Low, deep, rising from the black water. Thud. Pause. Thud. Every wave moved to its rhythm. The light beneath the surface brightened, spreading wider, like veins under translucent skin. "Jesus Christ," Rust whispered. "We buried it." Jack's face was unreadable. "You can't bury the tide." The waves surged suddenly, crashing against the pier. Rust grabbed a railing. Jack didn't move. The light spread farther now, stretching out to sea, like a giant heart beneath the waves, beating faster. "Jack!" Rust shouted. "Get back!" Jack turned to him, voice soft. "It's calling. You're not answering." But Jack was already stepping forward. The water reached his boots. The glow intensified. Mist rose in spirals around him. For an instant, Rust thought he saw shapes moving within it, faces, familiar and pleading, reaching out from the fog. Then a hand clamped onto Rust's arm. Elsie. Barefoot, hair wild in the wind. "Don't," she hissed. "If he goes alone." Rust tried to shake her off. "He's my brother." "He's not your brother anymore." Her voice cracked like thunder. "He's what the heart made him. It's the only reason we're still breathing." Jack turned back one last time, expression calm, distant, almost peaceful. "Tell them I made the delivery." Then he stepped into the sea. The water swallowed him without a sound. The glow vanished. The heartbeat stopped. Rust fell to his knees, staring at the dark waves. No? Elsie knelt beside him, rosary trembling. He bought us 30 years. Rust's jaw tightened. And then? She looked out over the ocean. The mist thickened, erasing the horizon. Her whisper barely rose above the wind. Then it remembers its name. Morning came pale and colorless. The fog didn't lift. The news called it a localized quake, blamed the tremors on old mining shafts. The town went back to pretending it was normal. At noon, a fisherman pulled his nets in from the pier. Tangled among the lines was a soaked cardboard box, sealed with wax. The label had smudged, but one word remained legible in black marker. Delivered. He opened the box. Inside was a cracked relic, pulsing faintly, like a dying heart. The fisherman frowned, touched it, and froze. From the water below came a soft, familiar sound. Thud. Then another. Thud. And then a voice, distant but clear, whispering up through the fog. 30 years. I'll remember your name.